Welcome to the Last Mile Delivery Podcast, your front row seat to the technological advancements shaping the future of last mile logistics. This podcast includes recordings from our Last Mile Delivery meetup, offering you exclusive insights and discussions about the cutting edge of the final mile in logistics. If you are interested in finding out more about upcoming events, technological updates, and industry news, subscribe to the Bettermile newsletter. The link is in our bio.
Welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you're here in our beta space. Welcome to the Last Mile Delivery meetup and welcome out of peak season. Did you survive? Yay! Good. So January probably the only month where parcel delivery can find a little bit of rest. And happy new delivery year from all of the Bettermile team. This format brings together established delivery players, neo-delivery companies, and tech providers. We want to foster an exchange in between you guys. We want to invite interesting speakers, bringing in insights to this industry. And it's great to have you all here in the Better Space and all the people joining us online on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other channels. Give yourself a hand. I'm really glad to have you here. Last time we met in September. Maybe you remember, the topic was customer experience, delivery experience. We had Mike from Better Trucks over from the US talking about this exciting business model and how he converts user experience to a strength and USP in the US American market. We had Steven from GLS US from the West Coast connected, reporting about how GLS US is tackling this topic, from which perspective. And we also had the retailer side covered. Nicolo from Vinted, as you remember, expanding their network, especially the locker network in Europe. And thanks everyone for making it a success. Today we have again more than 600 participants. We have roughly 100 people here on site. For the presentations and the networking afterwards, from roughly 400 organizations, really exciting, and from 27 countries today. So I'm really glad to have you here. I want to especially welcome our newest guests, our new joiners. It's from the delivery companies Dragonfly. We have representatives from Royal Mail over. We have Colis Privé as new joiner, Goffer, and the Polish Post. Really excited to have you here. From the last mile startups and growth companies, we have new in the round Dodo and Sedify. From the tech providers and platform as new joiners, we're welcoming Vanongo and Hive. And I made a special slide about it for the retailers and the brands. As new joiners, we have Lampenwelt and we have eRocket with us. So it's really great to have you guys here. I made a special slide about our United States guests, so really expanding our traction here. I'm really happy that we can make this an event across the pond with United States Postal Service, for example, with drop-off, 5-string solution as a provider, Better Trucks that we of course also had a speaker last time. So it's really taken off, and it's great to see that we can make it a more and more international event. So this is all about establishing a community and contributing to an exchange of hands-on experience and exciting tech insights. I stress this every time I'm welcoming to the meetup that this is the time not to see each other as competitors, rather as partners, because the real competitors are somewhere else. We need to push this and develop this industry forward, and also with a certain independence from the big 5 tech providers that own the map data, etc. So it's really important that established delivery companies, but also new delivery companies and specialized tech providers in the logistics sector, that we cooperate, that we share insights to build a community and work together, right? The real competition is somewhere else, and we have to remind this every time. So really glad to have you here. Your host tonight is Bettermile. Just short reminder, we're a company of roughly 100 people operating here in Berlin and active in 13 countries. We are providing a software as a service product suite that provides solutions for address processing, geocoding, and address intelligence. We provide a system for driver sequence optimization and navigation. And we also provide solutions for the consignee side, so real-time tracking solutions that can be implemented via API, widgets, or white label front ends. And we also cover the operational steering side, so a portal where depot managers and traffic managers can log in and see the progress of their delivery tours and can provide support to their drivers. So we roughly process 2.3 million parcels per day, roughly 6 million addresses, and have close to 3 million tracking requests per day. So far about the advertising part and the marketing part of Bettermile. Now we're coming back to the topic of today's meetup. We have more and more guests from the United States joining this event, and for my intro, I also choose the angle from the United States for today. You guys from Europe may not know too much about it, but a big challenge for US American delivery companies is porch piracy. Porch piracy is delivery of parcels when they get delivered just on the porch without proof of delivery, without a signature or something, that people go around and just steal these parcels. And this is becoming a massive, massive problem. Forbes estimated about 260 million packages stolen per year that create a loss of close to 20 billion US dollars. So it's not just a minor thing. Of course, it comes from this culture and to deliver without a proper POD, right? In Europe, we have a little bit different delivery culture where things get delivered with a signature or with a dedicated, with a POD. And this also has productivity gains, of course. If you don't need to collect a signature, you can deliver faster. But at the same time, it provides this big threat or this big problem of porch piracy, right? But let's see the opportunity of this. When you received a Christmas present and you don't like it, you just put it in a box and put it in front of your door. Someone will pick it. Okay? So that's the beauty of these things. No, stop kidding. This is it's a big problem, and the solution that is the most common today is this. People put on security cameras and hope that they can hold away thieves from their porches. But luckily, more and more delivery companies rethink this model and say, why do we not provide solutions that people actually understand when to expect the parcels and can take it from their porches or call the neighbor to collect it, right? So not saying that this will prevent the need of having security cameras, but at least this will bring a big advantage in terms of user experience and in terms of productivity. And really happy that also more and more US providers introduce real-time tracking or tracking solutions that bring us to the topic today, right? But it's not only about security, it's also about the general loss of productivity when people do not know that their parcel is coming up. So McKinsey just released a study a couple of days ago that estimated between 60 and 94 billion US dollars direct and indirect loss due to, for example, customer service agents that have to answer, where's my parcel requests, right? That have to, delivery drivers that have to look for the consignee and spend their time and dwell, right? So this is really an inefficiency in the process that in the corporations of tech providers, of delivery companies, and development of dedicated solutions can be prevented. So the topic for today is tracking and predictive analytics that really can help with these challenges, right? And I'm really happy that I can introduce you to 3 fantastic speakers of today. We have Dana. We have Dana. Dana is founder and CCO of Parcel Perform. In her backpack, she carries a decade of logistics experience at DHL and Alibaba, and before founding Parcel Perform. And with Parcel Perform, you're helping companies to increase their customer lifetime value, to reduce cost and improve user experience, also with the means of tracking. Dana, we're really happy to have you here. Give her a hand, please. We have Adrian over. As product owner at Bettermile, Adrian is working at the forefront of the tracking experience. So he's our nerd of the day. With his team, he uses especially the power of machine learning and predictive analytics to provide a tracking experience. And what he means with tracking experience, this means precision and reliability, and yet being an exciting experience that's fun for the consignees. And really excited, Adrian, that you today will give us a deep dive about the technology behind it. That will be really interesting. Give Adrian a hand, please. And last but not least, we have Patrick. Patrick works for Uber Direct, the parcel delivery arm of Uber. And he will share insight with us about the recent consumer research that they conducted, and where they also generated more insight about the impact of live tracking on the actual customer behavior, how this effect is. So really excited, Patrick, to have you here and hear about your solutions and plans with Uber Direct. So just to give you a little intro for the new joiners, we'll have 20 minutes per speaker. After every speaker, we'll have a roughly 5-minute Q&A. I'll pass around the microphone for questions here on site. Anyone joining remotely, please use the chat function of your streaming tool, and it will appear here on a screen, and I can read it out for you. After the 3 speakers and the last Q&A, we'll have a short panel discussion. So also here we'll take some questions. I'm happy to sum up the topic for you. And and then for you guys on site, I'm happy to have some beers with you and some snacks to have a chat about the next level of parcel delivery. So just before we start up, please sure to sign up to our newsletter for industry events, for industry news, and also about that you get notified for the next meetup. And please follow us on LinkedIn, where interesting content is provided every now and then. All right. So I would say the stage is yours, Dana, and we're excited to hear about Parcel Perform.
Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, welcome from my end as well. I have to tell you, I've never been to a meeting that was all about tracking. But for 8 years, I built a company that was all about tracking. So you cannot imagine how exciting this is. A word of warning, Simon said that we can be a little bit nerdy. So let's see between Adrian and me, who's the bigger nerd. So yeah, like Simon said, feel free to kind of ask any questions. We will after have some time. And don't hold back. I can also handle the technical stuff. And yes, do feel free to challenge me on that. All right. Really getting started talking about tracking. And I mentioned it already. I run Parcel Perform. We have specialized on aggregating tracking data across more than 1,000 different carriers on the last mile across 160 different markets. Many might ask, 1,000 carriers, how many are actually out there? We think it's about 1,800 relevant last mile carriers in the world. So we did quite a bit already to make sure that we can standardize their data, but there's still a lot more to do. You spoke about numbers as well, maybe one number to give you a bit of a feel on the kind of data complexity that we're dealing with. We have about 120 million parcel updates in our system every day. And that's a lot of e-commerce parcels, but also a lot of consumer-to-consumer parcels as well. But let's talk about tracking. And I think that's why everyone is here. And maybe to ease ourselves in a little bit of a picture here. If we think about the world of tracking, things could be relatively simple, we could argue. Because you could say, okay, there's a delivery company that's delivering a parcel to my house. They sort of sent me a notification. It's actually pretty simple, right? We should know what's going on. We should know. And the whole topic of port piracy, they theoretically should be in a stage to update me. But, and I think most of you will also know this, the reality is a lot more complex because on the one hand, you don't just have one delivery company delivering parcels, but we at least see more than 1,000. And you have a lot of customers that are not just delivering one parcel from one delivery company, but are actually waiting for a lot of deliveries from all this delivery company at once. Pretty complex, a lot of information flying around, and we made it our mission to bring a lot more clarity in this whole kind of vast majority of different information flying around. Now, if we then at the same time look at the challenges that this poses, if we look at just the carriers that are out there worldwide, the interesting thing, and something when I worked at DHL really bugged me because I tried to build the global tracking platform there, is there's no global standard for delivery tracking. There's no common description on how you describe the parcel, the status of a parcel. Yes, out for delivered could be, yay, your parcel is in delivery, hey, it's about to arrive on your home, but they all mean the same thing. Yet the industry never agreed on a common standard to describe this data. The second thing here is that with no standards, you have every carrier, every shipper out there, anyone describing the journey of parcels in a very different manner, even though delivery is not that hard. It gets picked up somewhere, it's in transit, maybe there's a bit of customs, then it's out for delivery and it's delivered. But with everyone describing this in a very different manner, and on our end, we actually saw more than 500,000 different events to describe something that should actually be relatively simple. We have to find a way to standardize this data to make it understandable, but also to make it interpretable. And we're not just talking about events when we speak about tracking. And I think most of you know this because it's not just about what happened to a parcel. It's also equally important where the parcel actually is. Well, another big problem because everyone describes this very differently as well. So we made it our mission to standardize this data and make sure everyone knows what it means, but also everyone can put it on a map. Last aspect here, also a really interesting one. When we first started my business, I built it in Asia first. Now in Asia, everything comes from China. I lived in Singapore. I didn't understand a thing. Then if a retailer, Alibaba, you mentioned it, we work with them as well, is trying to standardize the data, they get it in the wrong order because there's heaps of different time zones involved. We have a lot of business also in Latin America. Mexico has 3 different time zones. How do you decide which order the updates should actually be? So all this is a lot of complexity that we have to deal with when we talk about parcel tracking. It's not just about the event description, it's also about the languages, the time zones, and then it's about how clear the communication actually is, and whether we put it on the right channel, because we need to make sure that end consumers are actually getting it. On the flip side of this is a market where everyone actually wants to know. So when we look at the statistics, and we also provide tracking pages, usually integrated into web shops. If you shopped at Nespresso or Mr. Specs or My Theresa, they basically embed this data within their web shop with our help. And actually, customers are checking more than we think. I don't know how many of you, just before Christmas, was like desperately trying to find out whether you can still wrap the gifts and put it under the Christmas tree. And on average, especially for international parcels that take quite a while, people check 4.6 times. For any retailer, that's 4.6 times the opportunity to engage with an end consumer and potentially sell even more. So that's a huge opportunity. So getting this data right is just so meaningful for every player in the market. Now, the big question is, how do we do it? And without being too nerdy, we try to structure the process into 4 simple steps. That's sort of the USP that we have as a company. The first step, and it sounds easy, but it's actually really damn complicated, is that you have to integrate with, in our case, more than 1,045 different carriers across 160 markets globally. That means multiple integrations with every carrier, because the API have rate limits, the SFTPs sometimes don't work, and so on. That's the first important step. The second step is that we now have to harmonize the data. We have to interpret the events, the time zones, the locations, and so on. The third step is where I believe the magic happens, because this is the step where you take all the data that's out there and you try to make it meaningful. In our case, one of the applications I want to talk about is how we can actually predict when a parcel arrives before the carrier picks it up. Because the most meaningful point of accurate predictions is in checkout, because that's when you decide whether you're going to shop there or not. And then, of course, we need to make this data available. That's probably the easier step. But those 4 we have to get right. So for my presentation today, I want to quickly guide you through these 4 steps and give you a bit of a flavor of this. The first step that we're doing on our end is, of course, to integrate with all the carriers. But one thing we often overlook is it's great that you have all last mile data. If you don't connect this to an actual order and to an actual customer, it doesn't do the trick, right? Because people happen to want to know what's inside the box. So as we developed Parcel Perform, we quickly realized it's not just about having access to last mile data, but it's to make sure that we connect all the dots. And that starts with a successful order, with payment information. But that also incorporates that we incorporate all details from the warehouse. Because if you look at drop shipping in China or peak times where things take longer in the warehouse, this is where your customers get the most nervous. This is where you need to be able to actually provide updates on what's happening in the warehouse while you're waiting for the carrier to tell you what happened to the shipment overall. So that's the very first step that we're taking. And we do this, of course, with like multiple integrations, but that's still the easier one. The more complex one is then for us to harmonize this data. And I mentioned it before. It gets really tricky when you look at locations. The very first market we decided to launch with one of our big customers, Nespresso, was Thailand. And I wondered, why did they give us Thailand of all places? Turns out Thailand doesn't have postal codes. The description of a location is the door on the right, you take 2 steps, and then you go up the 4th floor. Try standardizing that, but we have to, because the delivery driver still has to get there, and the porch pirate shouldn't find the parcel, and the end consumer needs to know where it is. The second step here, also equally important, is to, of course, standardize events. Now, believe us, we tried this with AI, and it's getting better and better, but parcel delivery is so ambiguous. Something is in a sorting center, might be loaded in a truck. So we're actually manually double-checking and doing quality control of all of our events. So we have a master data team that is checking every single ambiguous event. Then we have the time zones. So you got to figure out where it actually was. If it crossed the border, you need to neutralize the time zones. We need to deduplicate the events. It gets very complicated. And then we actually have to translate it, in our case, in 36 different languages. The last language we just translated to was Khmer. If anyone knows where that is, we reached a few edge cases already, so we need to look for the next language to translate to. Third step, and this is, like I said, for me, the most exciting one. Because we talked about making sure that you have all available data sources ready. So you have the order events, you know something about the customer. Best case, you know what happened in the warehouse. Not everyone does, but we're trying to. And then you can track the last mile events. The key thing here is the EDD. And the great thing is that more and more carriers actually provide you with an EDD. They provide it at the moment they picked up the shipment, because that's the first time they can tell. And then later they provide you with an EDD the moment it's out for delivery, which is super important and great because they usually give you a time frame. Now, us as an end consumer want to have an EDD when we buy the stuff, because that's when we decide whether it makes sense to pick the express delivery service, whether we rather want to go to the store. So we looked into this, and we obviously have heaps and heaps of data to work with, and realized that in order to really fulfill that customer demand of actually knowing when the parcel will arrive before checking out, best case on the product pages. And by the way, there's one company that does this very well, and I know we all often don't want to talk about it, but it is what it is. Amazon does a pretty good job. You go there, you know you have Prime, you get it within a day, and that's one of the main reasons why they actually tell you. In fact, they did a study, and they increased their checkout conversion rate by 21% by giving an accurate EDD. That's an accurate date for the delivery. Imagine how much revenue that is for all the retailers out there. But unfortunately, they can't ask the carrier because the carrier doesn't even have the parcel yet. So how do we get to an accurate EDD on a product page or on checkout? And that's what we looked at. And obviously, a lot of the beauty in there, and I see you smiling because you're probably tackling the same thing, and looking forward to hear that. But yeah, the whole beauty is in having enough data and have a model that has enough data to train on and to understand all the variables to make sure that you have a very accurate way to predict the ED. Now, you said we can be a bit nerdy, and there's one thing that I might want to add to this. When we talk about accuracy of EDDs, a lot of carriers say, oh, well, we are very accurate. Well, yes, if you're very conservative. So the non-late accuracy is the biggest question. What does that mean? Is if I say the parcel arrives latest in 10 days on a Friday, that is very accurate because likely the parcel arrived before that. Fantastic, we all have a great EDD. Still a terrible customer experience because even if you bring it earlier, the customer might not have been at home. So as you develop your AI models, you have to have a day accuracy to make sure it's the actual day the customer expects this in. And very happy to say we have rolled this out with quite a few customers on our side and also very big brands here in Germany. And they luckily could see also similar checkout conversion rates like the one that I just mentioned for Amazon. So big game changer in the industry. And I just want to say this again, we cannot put it on the carriers because they can only predict the EDT by the time they have the parcel. So there's got to be solutions out there that connect the parcel industry to the shippers to make sure that it actually works. Last but not least, also very important, I think if we talk about parcel tracking, everyone is talking about latency. Really big topic, also something very, very big for us. We got to make sure that we keep all the data updated, that we connect all the data points. And this is also where we see huge opportunities for AI. In the past, we had rule-based models on when to look for data updates. And by the way, you got to be very careful because some of the data backends on the giving side of information might not be able to take the load well. So it's also our responsibility to do the load balancing, to ask at the right time, something that we take very seriously. But the exciting thing is now that with the help of AI, we can actually ask at a much better time, at the highest likelihood when we get parcel tracking updates as well. All right, that's almost coming to the end. You might be wondering, what do we now do with all this data that we're aggregating? On the one hand, we work with a lot of retailers out there, so they want to update their customers, they want to send notifications, they usually want white label notifications, so it doesn't matter so much which carrier delivers it, because you give your money to a retailer, so you sort of want them to keep you updated. There's a lot of exciting stuff we can do with good tracking updates also for those retailers. At the same time, we want to give it to the shippers, because if we are very accurately analyzing this data, we can not only see SLA compliance, but we can actually see which depot has an issue, which pickup time and cut-off time maybe by your retailer doesn't work out, because they always give it later to you but blame you for being late. So there's a lot of collaboration we have with the carriers and the shippers to make sure that we get actionable insights from this data as well. And then IT is giving up, but we also wanted to highlight that this is obviously a big one also for developers, making sure that they get the data in real time as possible, and therefore we try to do it via APIs and webhooks as much as possible. So with the help of that, and that's my very last slide, what are we trying to do? Tracking data can sound very nerdy, and I also really like it that way, but I think the real impact goes through the user journey. And the real impact of tracking data can already start on the product pages and at the checkout, because that's the first time when it matters what's going to happen to your shipments. The tracking data then is a central touch point to the relationship with the end consumer. Of course, very brand building for many, but also making it very actionable. It's then an amazing opportunity to engage, to kind of represent your brand, but also to get feedback from your carrier. Then it has a big point also on returns, something that I didn't manage to talk about today, but of course, tracking on returns is very important. We just need to be careful. It's a different kind of tracking. Your customers don't care where the parcel is. They care when they get the money back, but it's still an event that we have to relate to them. And of course, if we want to make the industry better and we want to help everyone to understand where there are opportunities to improve, and having this data will really drive operational differences as well. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Dana, stay with us for a while.
Yes,
for,
sure.
Some questions. I'm sorry. All right. I'll take some questions from the audience. Does this microphone work? Yes. Cool. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, first of all, nice presentation. It was really interesting. I was wondering, you've explained that you have successfully implemented your solution with more than 1,000 different companies and retailers. And you've also talked, of course, about how important it is to always receive all the event updates for all the parcels which are being delivered. So I was wondering which kind of approach works for all these 1,000 different companies. Like, can you get all the potentially scan events from different carriers, or which kind of approach can work with all these different markets and time zones? How do you deal with this?
Yeah, so the opportunity for us is there's not a single approach, which makes it really hard for everyone else to figure this out. Every carrier has their own infrastructure, and some carriers are still a little bit in Stone Age when it comes to that. So you see quite a few SFTP file exchanges. And I used to make jokes about them, but in times of peak, they come in very handy because they don't have rate limits. So we sort of like them. So you still get an update if any API doesn't work. Obviously, most of the carriers, especially internationally, and we see a lot of new carriers coming up in Asia, where we have a lot of business as well, usually work with APIs, which is very helpful. Our favorite, and I think the best solution for the entire industry, would be to move to webhooks, because it makes sure that you get the information when there is an update and you don't put load on other systems to constantly ask whether there is actually an update in place. So we believe this is the most efficient method, but we also don't see many carriers doing that yet. So there's a reason why we have about 120 developers that make sure that we have all these carrier integration up.
Another question.
One question about what I would call the shipper integration, which shows the EDD, as you said. Did you also try something with what I would call premium timeframe upgrades, or something where the customer is able to select a specific timeframe and pays extra?
Yeah, we would love to. So we obviously handle the technical side of that. For this, we would need the carriers to provide that as a service. And some carriers do. but then it's usually a service embedded on their website, so we can embed it as a link and then link back to the carrier page to then upgrade. But that's obviously not great for many retailers. So we see only very few carriers for now that have this as a sort of API-based service that we could embed in our services. I see a lot more of that in Asian carriers. Ninja Van in Singapore, for example, does a pretty good job. And maybe, I don't know if Uber Direct has a different update for us, but those newer solutions sometimes have a tendency to make this available faster. At the same time, we of course understand the carriers, because to do that, you have to have the operational processes to support it, and that can get very, very messy.
Thanks. I'll take a question from remotely. One question from Charlotte is, can you think of any tracking data that you wish you'd have, but which is not available from the carriers?
I mean, every carrier really has, okay, the biggest one for, if I can dream, is CO2 emissions, because that's obviously, that's a key decision factor for many carriers, and frankly for us it's quite interesting because we see all these parcels, but we don't know what's the mode of transportation. So if we were allowed to help them and they would only tell us the mode of transportation, we sort of exactly know when it was picked up, how long it went, we see where, it's probably same for you. So that would be super interesting. If we talk about US carriers, but also German carriers, we have a few that do pictures at hub, which is super helpful, so we can pre-alert even on the size of the parcel, because some customers, if it's big and bulky, you actually don't really want it in a parcel locker or parcel shop, because then you have to carry it home. So if we could have more information about that, that would be helpful for the customers. And then the picture at delivery location, I think, is also a big one. Port piracy, maybe to close the loop on that one. If every carrier were to just take a picture on where they actually dropped it and not just say, oh, it was delivered to the neighbor. But yeah, which neighbor? Where is it actually? So I think there's still quite a lot of improvement.
Okay, so you want a picture of the neighbor in the data? That's good. Yeah.
Do you have an insight that you can share about where you get the GPS data from? Like, is it mostly from phones or from telematics boxes or directly from OEM? And is there any trend that you see?
Yeah, very good question. I don't have a concrete answer. Also, I see a lot of regional differences. So we have a lot of providers like Lala Move, GoGoVan in Asia. They all have handheld devices, and they're usually connected to that. That has an incredibly high accuracy. People like Uber or Grab in Asia, they also have pretty high accuracies when it comes to synchronous tracking, which basically means that you constantly see what's actually going on. Whereas most of the carriers obviously usually have what we call asynchronous tracking, so they give us an event every now and then, but you could never draw a map, otherwise the parcels would fly through a city. So it really depends, there's no single answer.
Maybe one last question, yes?
Thank you for the presentation. We are dealing with the exact issue, so it was really nice to see that. I have a question, maybe for the return flow. So in our company, it's we also have we work with multiple carriers and stuff like that, and we often see that for some reason the return flow is always different. We don't get as many events. It's really difficult to deal with. So I'm curious if you also have those issues, and what are you, let's say, how do you approach those problems?
Yeah, I think a return question is difficult. I think most of us would know it's all a matter of negotiation and how much you're ready to pay, right? Because the return flow doesn't have an urgency to it. The carrier doesn't transport it as fast as they have to on the outbound. So it really also depends on your negotiation with the carriers. Maybe on the tracking side, one interesting thing that we're seeing is we obviously also track returns, and we actually do even the booking and facilitation of returns. But we see that a lot of end consumers, they really don't care that it's in a sorting center now, because for them, it really doesn't make a difference. What end consumers want to know is whether the return hit the warehouse, and best case, whether it was an accepted return, and then the cash remittance starts. So that's, again, our attempt to make sure that we don't just integrate last mile data, but we make sure we integrate other data sources too, to then connect it to give meaningful updates. And also to the retailers that we're working with, for them it also almost doesn't matter basically where the return exactly is. They need to know the reverse EDD. They need to know when the return hits the warehouse so they can start selling it again. So there's a lot of sort of pre-alerts, EDDs on an aggregated level that we are doing for our customers on the warehouse to make sure that they can prepare for the returns to come in and then can basically start selling it again.
All right, thanks everyone for your questions. Thanks, Dana. Please applause for Dana and welcome Adrian. With Adrian, we're moving from EDD to ETA.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. Welcome from my side as well. Well, this is my office, so I hope you like it. So, who am I? I'm Adrian Wilhelm. I am one of the product owners for the Better Tracking product. I was in the lucky situation that I was able to actually start this from scratch, this product, the tracking product. So I've been working on this, or we have been working on this for the last 3.5 years. And yeah, the idea was to establish a tracking experience in parcel deliveries that is similar and was evolving from these Uber experiences that you have, like this immediate live tracking experience, right? And this is what I'm going to talk about today with you, is the predictive analytics in real-time tracking. And I will dive more into the last mile tracking. So it's not about the whole journey of the tracking experience, is really last mile. So from the morning the parcel was loaded to the vehicle until it arrives to your home, right? So we're looking into tours or routes, depending on where you're from. So the delivery tour or route is what I'm focusing a lot on today. And consignees and recipients of the parcel is also something that I may use both, but it's the same thing, right? So let's get started. So I will give you a short introduction about tracking. I will talk about user expectations a lot, or not a lot, but a bit. I will dive into our Better Tracking product, and then I will use most of the time to explain to you a little bit how we use AI in our product. So, what is real-time tracking? Well, I hope that's clear for everyone. But it allows recipients or consignees to monitor their parcels in real time on the day of delivery. And ideally, they have a correct estimated time of arrival, which is sort of like the most important piece of information for the consignee. This is, you know, all of those, or some of those at least. This is where this tracking experience is evolving from, and it's also more and more important in terms of parcel deliveries, right? Here you order your Uber, you wait, you know exactly it's there in 20 minutes, you can follow the vehicle live on the map, and then boom, it just arrives where you are, right? This is still not the case with parcel deliveries, and I will tell you a little bit why that is. But first, how does those work? Well, I think they are relatively easy. Don't want to insult anyone here from Uber, but well, usually there is a ride acceptance or a food preparation, let's say, or packing the food, groceries, whatever, and then there's the ride. So the ETA that we're facing here is the preparation time, acceptance time, and driving time. Well, that sounds easy, right? This is how it looks for parcel deliveries. They have a very similar approach in look and feel, but there's a huge difference in understanding this ETA. What is the big difference? What do you think? The duration of the tour, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think that's the bigger one, right? So we have the sorting, we have the tour setup and loading the vehicle. Obviously, the tracking experience already starts there. But I think what is really, really the more tricky part is we have a lot of stops, a lot. We have up to 200 stops, depending where we are. And the ETA is the tour setup, of course. Driving time to waypoint 1, service time. So taking the parcel the stairs to up and so on, and then waypoint 2, service time. Waypoint 3, service time. So to understand the ETA of a single parcel at the very end of this tour, well, that's a little bit more tricky. Yeah, let's dive into how we try to tackle this, right? So But first, what does the user want? We did many surveys, 5 in total in one study with more than 5,000 recipients. Time of arrival was always number 1. So no question, there's really no mistake that time of arrival, the ETA, is the most relevant information that the users want. They want other things. They want drop-off permissions. They want the vehicle position. They want to have a fun experience even. Some said that. But time of arrival is what we're focusing on, and also what we're focusing a lot in our work. Why? Well, they want to receive the parcel usually in person, and they're even willing to change their plans according to a tracking product. So they might change the time when they want to go shopping to a supermarket or take out the dog earlier or later, right? Depending on the real-time tracking of the parcel. So this is really what the users want. But then there's 3 phases in your tracking experience as well for your users, right? So in the morning, you have received your first initial email or whatever, SMS, stating, hey, live tracking is available, or you already have an ETA with this SMS, and then your tracking journey starts. What does the users do? Well, they do their rough day planning. So they consider, oh, the parcel arrives in the afternoon, so I go shopping now in the morning, or the other way around, right? Things like that. Later that day, they keep on tracking 5 times in your examples. For us, it's even a little bit more. It's more like 8 times. And they align the activities and they align the schedule according to that. And then the moment of truth, right? They're waiting for their iPhone, right? They want to receive this parcel in person. So this moment of delivery and this last minutes of their tracking experiences are becoming super important for the users, and they really want this to be perfect, right? They want to be wait in front of the house sometimes even. I did this. That happened to me personally. Like I was doing a tour with a delivery driver, and there was this boy waiting for his graphic card or whatever, with the smartphone in his hand tracking the parcel. So this is the 3 phases, and we want to cover all of them in a perfect way. But what is important here? Well, here, a 2, 3, 4 hour time window is sufficient. At the end, this number 3, excitement and perfect handover, you want 15 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes of precision. So that's the tricky part here. And then how do the others do this? Well, some of them, they do it, but I think the relevance of the ETA is not as great, right? So this example here, I don't know if you know the company behind that, it tells you, well, it arrives until 10 o'clock. Oh, great. I cannot plan anything. It arrives not later than 10. All right, cool. Even better is that one. It arrives between 0 and 24 hours later. But the good part is they're right, at least if it's the same day of delivery. How do we do this? I hope a little bit better. We have narrowing ETA time windows. We have vehicle live position, at least from a certain moment in time on. We have live updates. And we have customizations, such like a drop-off permission, delivery to neighbor, timeframe upgrades. We're working on that. And yeah, so we are trying to cover these 3 phases quite well here. So now the nerdy part. AI. So to set the stage here, there's more, I know, but we have 2 different types of tours, let's say. We have navigated tours, or tours where we at least have a GPS position and a little bit more, and we have offline tours. Navigated tours, ideally with Bettermile, so we really have a navigation screen in the vehicle, and every waypoint is on that. Some users or some drivers use Google Waze here, whatever, right? And we have simply offline tours where we have nothing, except for the driver has pen and paper, but there's no digital device on the tour, right? And what is the data flow with navigated tours now? So we start with the loading list and the parcel information. This is something we usually have and we usually need via API, via webhooks. We get this from the couriers. Then we have a planned sequence, again, ideally with better route, but it doesn't matter. We have some sort of planned sequence. And then that's the key, the backbone of our service with ETAs, vehicle position, and live updates of those 2 things, right? And then we have the parcel deliveries. And but with this, and this is the basis for our tracking product. But we don't have one tour with one device. We have many of those. Well, it's usually drivers, so people, human beings, driving those vehicles. And they're not always following this sequence, not as we hoped at least. So this is the very first AI prediction that we're doing here is the fidelity. So the fidelity of those users using those navigation device, and fidelity means like, do they follow this suggested sequence? Yes or no? So some people just have a device but put it in a glove box and just do whatever they want. It's really happening. So here we make it rather simple. We have a high fidelity, a medium fidelity, and a low fidelity. Well, with high fidelity, it's fairly easy. We have a perfect tracking experience on our hands because we know every single ETA and we know it's correct because the driver is using the navigation tool. Hence, all of the ETAs by the navigation tool, if it works correctly, are fine. With the medium fidelity, well, it's not as good anymore, but it's still solid. Where we don't maybe give out a 15-minute or 5-minute ETA time window, but rather like 30 minutes, still good enough. Low fidelity, well, I will come back to that one later. But that's not all. So now we know it's a high or medium fidelity tour. So yeah, we have some understanding if the driver is following the sequence, yes or no. But on top of that, we have another AI model which uses a lot of variables, dimensions of this specific tour, such as the type of area where the driver is going. Is it an industrial area, rural area? Is it a city? Whatever it is, right? Different countries have different drive patterns. What is the density of the tour? So is this just one little borough that the driver is delivering to, or is it like 15 little villages and there's like 10 kilometers between each village? Traffic is another topic that we consider here in our models. And then, of course, the average speed of the tour, the average service time of the driver, the average breaks that the driver takes, usually none, but that's a different story. And then that gives us our perfect, hopefully, ETA time window. Offline tours, well, the data flow is different, right? As you probably guessed. We still have a loading list, we still have the parcel information. We may have a planned sequence, which is a fixed one though, so it's something that happened before. There's different names for this. Basically, it's pen and paper. This is the first parcel you deliver, this is the second, and so on, right? And then we have the parcel deliveries. We usually get those status events also via APIs and webhooks. What we don't have is ETAs, vehicle position, and live updates. So again, what to do here? Well, the answer is, of course, we have a crystal ball. Jokes aside, no, we actually have a sequence prediction. That's the second AI tool we're using here, actually the third. And we have our ETA prediction on top of that. And that gives us actually, again, hopefully a perfect ETA time window. So even though this driver is completely without any digital help, it's really driving with pen and paper, we're still able to create a tracking experience, a live tracking experience even. So, yeah. How do we measure our success then? Well, first of all, if the tours drive with Bettermile, we have a very high fidelity. So 90% of the tours driving with the core or with one of the core products from Bettermile have a medium or high tour fidelity, meaning they actually follow our suggested sequence. And our predictions are pretty good. So 87%, more or less, of all of those prediction models have that's the success rate of those predictions, right? So close to 90%, which is pretty good. Even the smaller ones, even the 15-minute ones, we usually predict quite correct. And we have tons of users already. And the average star rating here is 4.2 out of 200,000 ratings. So I think, are we the best? I don't know. I just looked up the comments where it said best in all of the countries. So yes. What's the footprint? Well, we last year just started 2024, so we did a big look back into what we have achieved last year. So we have analyzed 2.1 million tours, navigated tours, so tours driving with any sort of navigation tool, 1 million offline delivery tours, where we only work with our prediction models. And then we in total had 80 million users tracking their parcels on our front ends, on our widgets, on our tracking APIs, whatever, with in total 150 million clicks that happen in total of 11 countries. So not quite there where Dana and her company is, but we're getting there, hopefully, at one point. And the customized deliveries is 1 million that we have achieved, which I'm pretty proud of because I think that's actually helping the drivers quite a bit. And yeah, so challenge accepted, I would say.
Thanks, Adrian. That was really exciting. I would take a question here from the audience first.
Hi, can you hear me well? Okay,
Yeah.
so just on the hardware side, so this year there are rumors that phones would possibly get edge AI as well as multimodal AI that can help in possible, let's say, scenarios. Has your team or the company been exploring this in terms of either helping the drivers or the customer as well? So for example, if it's multimodal AI, if the customer allows taking pictures or any type of media that can feed the phone and hence enhance the experience, or even with respect to drivers, whether the tracking can improve.
Do you mean the drivers or do you mean
the hardware? So for example, because for example, the iPhone is going, or rather rumored to have Edge AI, the new one. So do you see potential in that helping your company as well?
Well, I guess if this enhancing the navigated tours, yes. I think if this is really helping like the driver maneuver better through his day, I think that would be helpful. And then the data that we get as a tracking product is sort of like the afterthought of this or the aftermatch of this. But yeah, potentially this could definitely help us. I haven't, to be honest, thought about that yet because this is not our turf so much. We don't use any hardware in our product. Our product is really only collecting data and then making a tracking experience out of this with the data that we have, basically. And then using AI in order to achieve that, because sometimes we have to use AI to predict sequences, and then to predict the ETA time windows that we hope that the parcel will be delivered. So the AI is already, we don't need hardware. We have the software part of that we're covering that on the software part, let's say. I hope that answers your question, though.
I have another question here.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I wonder whether you have any data on the impact of these wrong predictions. Is it better to have a wrong prediction or to not have a prediction at all in these cases?
Really good question. We can live with wrong predictions, but we don't want to show wrong predictions to our users because like a wrong information in terms of a tracking product is really the worst you can get. Because as you saw, users and consignees are really planning their days. So if this information is wrong, we are screwed. And we like 4.2 means there are people complaining, otherwise it would be 5 out of 5. And whenever they complain, they exactly complain about that. So we're really cautious when it comes to our predictions and trying to be very, very cautious about those, right? So we only consider like where we are to a certain degree very sure. So predictions where we think, we'd rather drop them under the table, we have them, but we don't show them to the users.
I would take one more question. I had one here. Can you hand that through, please?
Thank you. Yeah, Claudio from the company Ridergy. Yeah, actually, I was one of these. I didn't complain, but I checked, I think, 4 times, so I kind of the statistics was right. I did it only once, and there's only one time. I'm not sure if it was your system or any other system, but in any case, it was like predicting in the morning, and then at the end, I was planning my day. So exactly like you said, and then the afternoon it came, and I was unhappy. So I was wondering, what are the reasons where the predictions are wrong? What are the biggest challenges you're facing there?
Well, the biggest challenge is the human factor, right? This is something we can't control. AI can be so smart, but if the driver decides to, I don't know, like go to McDonald's and have a longer lunch break, and then the McDonald's is on the other side of the city, then everything is screwed up, right? People do personal things during their tours, visiting their grandmas, whatever it is. These type of factors is we cannot control.
Yes, one last question. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Quick question. Imagine the driver is a new driver. He is not experienced, so we can expect that the fidelity is low. He is not following the sequence too much. So, okay, but we have 2 machine learning models. We are catching up. We're showing something. But then time goes by. The driver becomes more experienced, and now he follows that. So now it would be better if we treat it as a driver with a high fidelity, but the model now thinks that this guy is a guy with a low fidelity, and the output would be that, okay, the ETA window is a little bit too high.
Yeah.
Do you take it into consideration and retrain the model with the time, or if not, then consider starting doing this?
That's a really good question. Your assumption is wrong. Usually the untrained drivers follow the sequence much better than the trained drivers, because the trained drivers know everything in and out, and then they have their own ideas. And of course, yeah, so we do this live, actually. So we understand during the day, during the tour, if this tour is falling into our prediction models or not. And then we understand if we actually start a tracking experience for the concernees or not, like live during the day, not in all cases, but in many. And we train the models constantly. So we like constantly retraining the models with the data. It's also seasonal data that we need to consider here. Load data, so now it's a rather low season in terms of parcel deliveries, high season, peak season before Christmas. We need to train the model in different ways and or with the different data, let's say with the data of the peak season and not with the data of a low season. Yeah, so we do this constantly.
Yeah, but I really like the challenge of fidelity discrimination of drivers due to AI. So we should treat them fairly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks for the question. And we'll just hand over to Patrick. Really excited to have you.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation and also for the quick introduction. So today I'm going to talk about refining the delivery experience, how live tracking is improving the customer experience, and how Uber's approach is to accessible last-mile delivery solutions. Before that, some words about me. So my name is Patrick. I've been with Uber for 8 months now. Started last year in May. I'm a commercial manager, so it's going to be a little bit nerdy, but not too nerdy. Before that, I was also actually working in the last mile industry for Gorillas. So I did this roller coaster ride there, which was also very, very interesting. And before that, I was actually working in Austria for L'Oreal as a key account manager. So today I would like to talk about what is Uber Direct actually, about 3 things. What is Uber Direct? How is live tracking impacting customer behavior? And also, how is live tracking done on Uber Direct? So starting with the first one, what is Uber Direct? And maybe, out of interest, who has ever heard about Uber Direct before this event? Maybe you can raise your hand. It would be just like very interesting. So it's very few people. After the presentation, it will be definitely more. Yeah, with Uber Direct, I think it's like the easiest to start actually with the Uber story, because Uber Direct is somehow an evolution out of the other products before. So with Uber, it all started in 2009 when our founder, Travis Kalaniak, had this Paris moment where he couldn't get a cab. So normal reaction, he was just founding his own company, Uber, for passenger transportation. Then in 2015, Uber Eats was launched, which is like a marketplace for food delivery. And then in 2022, the groceries and essentials were also available on the marketplace. And since 2022, we have Uber Direct, where you can theoretically anything if it's within the law. So Here are basically 3 products. So the first one is Uber, which is like for passenger transportation. The second one, the green one, is Uber Eats, the marketplace for food and grocery delivery, and Uber Direct is the blue one now. That's our color. A white label delivery solution as a white label delivery as a service solution, which is basically taking the existing courier network from Uber Eats and offering this to companies in order to offer them the express delivery to their customers. And it's also the reason why I said it's somehow like an evolution out of the other products, because without Uber Eats, there wouldn't be Uber Direct. So how does it basically look like in terms of the operations, the differences? So I guess it's pretty clear. Uber rides, you just everyone has done it, I guess. You just go to the app, get your cab, and then you have your ride. With Uber Eats, you go to the app, you select one of the restaurants, and one of our riders is then delivering the food. And with Uber Direct, it is basically a bit different, where you have basically the merchant channel, and Uber Direct is doing the logistic in the background as a white label solution. So Uber Direct basically brings express delivery on scale to Germany, and is using the existing Uber Eats courier network. We are currently, I think, in like 90 cities in Germany, and obviously expanding. So why same day when you can have it like in 1 hour, right? This is like our value position. Obviously, we're also offer same day, but and also scheduled. But yeah, in the end, it's about like this ASAP on demand, quick delivery. So I hope this could give you like a good intro about Uber Direct. Then I would like to continue with the second thing, which is how live tracking is impacting customer behavior. And here I basically brought some data from a study we did in 2023 with a partner called Edelmann. The topic was delivery, especially delivery within, especially express delivery, which is defined as delivery within 2 hours. We did 5,754 interviews, online interviews with individuals which were older than 18. And we're also representing their market in terms of the age, in terms of the gender, and also the income. And we did this in 60 markets. So we have here the regions with EMEA, LATAM, APEC, and North America. So from the survey, I basically picked 3 key findings, which I would like to present you today. So the first one is delivery is no longer only a service, but part of a product. Then also the different delivery factors across across the generations, and then last but not least, delivery experience, which has a key impact on customer experience. So starting with the first one, with delivery, delivery is no longer only a service but part of the product. I guess traditionally it was always separated, right? You had like this product, and then you had the delivery part, but now it's becoming more and more like an integral part of the product, because customer, when they order something, they also expect you to see basically delivery or the state of the product over the whole delivery. And this is over the whole delivery, yeah. So, but it's not only basically about the delivery, it's also about express delivery. So we have asked the participants to what extent they agree to certain statements. One of the statements was how much they expect express delivery as an option, which places should offer, and it was actually 53% from the German participants. So every second is basically seeing this as something which should be like rather normal, and that's also what we believe, right? It's coming from something new, so like a nice to have, to like a trend or like something which should be normal. The participants, we also saw in the answers of the participants that they have like this emotional aspect, which also like Adrian mentioned, for delivery. So they said, or for the statements, 70% of the people said they like a product more if they had like a positive delivery experience, and comparably the other way around, 51% liked the product less when they had like a negative delivery experience. This being said, so delivery experience is a powerful tool that affects the customer satisfaction and with the product itself. Second thing is the prioritization of delivery factories across the generations. Here, I basically brought like a little list with the delivery factors. which are important to the customers for whole Germany, but also for the generations. And here, I guess it's pretty clear. Every generations, they have like different preferences, and so there are like definitely differences. We see that the older generations, so Gen X and Boomers, they rather have like this approach to reliability, or like this focus to reliability and cost. Whereas the younger generations, Gen Z and Millennials, they rather want to have like speed and also real-time updates. And this becomes especially like obvious when we look at these two delivery factors, live tracking notifications and also real-time tracking, which are connected to this whole like tracking part. Here, this preferences of the younger generations become much more like obvious. So, but yeah, we also asked then the participants directly for these two delivery factors, and then we had the result that all of them, or like that, like 93% said it's at least somewhat important for them. So, which kind of like also translate into there is definitely value in these tracking factors. So. That being said, there's definitely delivery, or like the delivery experience has definitely an impact on the customer experience. So live tracking isn't just like a nice to have anymore. It's basically a powerful and desired feature for that can drive trust in a merchant. So there was a statement: tracking orders makes them feel more, and 50% of the German population said, peace of mind or relief. And also 53, or like every third person said, I also feel more trust with the retailer because of that. And that's not only like interesting for like the actual order, I feel good about the order, but it's also interesting about this building the connection or relationship to the customer. And then with the last thing, there's also this excitement for product, where the Gen Z is again a little bit more excited than the other ones. But yeah, so. Having that said, this is also, or like what's also very interesting is when we compare the German results against other regions, because there we see that other regions, or like there we see basically where the trend goes. So for this, for the consumer expectations, realities, here wish they were better able to track orders in real time. For example, people in LATAM or Latin America said, to like 92% of them said, I agree. Whereas in Germany, it's only like 65%. So clear difference of like 30% basically. For the second statement, I'm more likely to order express delivery if I can track the order in real time. There, the difference even bigger. It's like almost 44%. So there's definitely, I think it's like very fair to say it's not only like a nice to have, it's a must have to have tracking for in the future. And that's it for this thing. So now, how it gets interesting? How is live tracking done on Uber Direct? And before this, I would like to ask you: do you find yourself here in these memes? Maybe, So I can definitely say I can 100% resonate with these memes. So when I do like an Uber Eats order, and I see the location of the courier on the map, I go completely serial killer mode. So I check the location of the courier every 3 minutes. When a courier arrives, you can be also sure I'm already looking at him or her from my window, and the door also opens automatically. So with this food delivery, online food delivery, I guess it's a super emotional topic. We all know basically this sentence about "you're not you when you're hungry," right? And this is what basically Uber had to learn from the very beginning, and that's also why I guess we are like so advanced with this live tracking. And how we are doing the live tracking is something I'm going to show you now. So imagine there was an order, and there was a delivery created. So depending on the tech integration, the customer can see the tracking either on the channels of the partner or of the merchant, of the brand, or we provide them with a URL where the customer can see or can like see this tracking page. And there are like different functionalities on this page, and I'm gonna tell you or show you now which one. So first one would be delivery notifications, right? So this is implemented in our deliveries. You get 4 notifications. So the first one is deliveries created. Then the second one, your courier is en route. Then the third one, the courier is arriving 2 minutes away. And then the last one, it's delivered or failed. Then we also have the progress bar, which is basically 5 green bars, which is showing you the stage of the delivery. And another thing is the delivery time. This is like maybe interesting now. So with delivery time, we have the ETD and the LTD. ETD is the estimated time of delivery. The LTD is the latest time of delivery. And the question is now, how are these times calculated? And for this, our algorithm comes into the game, picks basically historical data or parameter for this specific trip, and is calculating with the help of machine learning basically a set of potential or possible delivery times. And then for this set of delivery times, for the ETD, the value in the middle is taken, so the 15th percentile, and is constantly basically updated across the stages of the delivery. For latest time of delivery, it's like a static number. So at the beginning of the trip, it will stay the same for the whole time, and we take there the 95th percentile. So the value which is later than 95% of the possible values, and earlier than 5% of the other values. Then there's also delivery events, which we basically, which are like not shown there on the map, but it's like kind of like timestamps we communicate or like share with our partners. And then also like the courier geolocation, which is also very interesting because, I mean, I don't know if you had ever the situation where you were like looking out of the window and expecting the courier like should be actually there, but it's not there. The reason for this is we have to, because of legal reason, to adjust the geolocation of the courier with 0.002 digits, which is like 111 meters. Yeah, now you know. And the almost last thing is courier information. So in order for the customer to easily find the courier, we have the first name, a portrait picture of the courier, then also the vehicle type, and also like 3 digits of the vehicle of the license plate. And last thing, if this didn't work, there's also this communication feature, so both can basically exchange messages, help to make this delivery a successful delivery. And that, with this live tracking features, it's not only good for the customer in terms of the motion aspect, it's also good for our operations. So this last stage is like super crucial, I would say. It requires a lot of coordination and also transparency. So our average time of delivery is 35 minutes in Germany. It's actually like faster than 1 hour. And only 3 minutes of this is the average handover time. So when a courier comes to the drop-off point and then basically to the point where he successfully says, okay, the order's delivered. And apart from time, the most, I think, craziest thing is basically the success rate. So from all our trips we have started, 99.4% are basically delivered, which is, I guess, a super strong number. So that's it from presentation. Happy to answer questions now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, that's a good success rate, I would say. Yeah. Not that different from parcel delivery, actually. From good parcel delivery. I would take question, first one here from inside, but on site. Please, all remote joiners, feel free to fill in your questions in the chat windows.
Yeah, thank you. One question, are you currently or planning also to incorporate multiple delivery stops for one driver, or is it at the moment really a pickup and directly a delivery, or are there multiple pickup stops potentially and then multiple delivery stops on the same route?
For Uber Eats, we're already doing batching. So we have like a maximum of like 3 trips or like 3 orders. The courier can take on. And this is not only like single location batching, but it's also multi-location batching. So in order to answer the question, yes, we are doing the batching. And for direct, because it's not a product which like can expire, it's even becoming more interesting to batch more products or more orders together. So it could be potentially more than 3.
Is food and direct batched together?
Depends on the merchant. So this is like customizable, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll have another question here from Henrik.
Yeah, hi. I'm Karl Friedrich. I was really interested in the customer survey data that you presented. Thank you very much for that. To what extent do you think you can extend the need for speed or the need for transparency to other categories? I mean, I understand that if you order food or groceries, you're really hungry, you're waiting for it, and you want to have it now. But like when you enter now other categories like anything, you presented that. How does that apply to those other categories?
So we take the same functionalities for which we have with Uber Eats for also other categories. If this answer.
To the consumers in the same way. So are they also so desperate to see their fashion items, for example, being delivered?
So I think this is. I mean, actually, I don't know. Something I can check, but I don't think that I've ever seen like some data or insights on this in order to answer the question properly.
So if you are waiting for your iPhone, probably you're as hungry for your as for your pizza arriving. You know, that's pretty exciting. If it's a toilet paper, I don't know.
Depends.
It depends if it's urgent.
Can be urgent. Yeah, I was wondering your thoughts on efficiency of this A to B delivery versus a route, and if you think that can be ever profitable, especially, I mean, it seemed like the Gen Z was everything high and also cheap. So,
yeah. So my thoughts on efficiency is. Yeah, honestly, this is also something I would have to look up in order to give you like a proper answer, because for that I'm like too less into the actual operations. As a commercial manager, I'm like more in the sales part in order to answer this question properly. Yeah.
Hi. Donna had mentioned web shop conversion rates when customers can see the EDD.
Yeah.
What kind of, have you had any feedback on conversion rates when they're offered this same day or on-demand delivery option? And yeah, what is the pricing around this as well from the customer side, whether it's the web shop or the end customer for this kind of premium delivery service?
Yeah. So for the first question is sorry, what was the first question again? Yeah, if we can see the conversion rate. No, so there's like no data, but we do basically show if delivery is like possible. So we have like this API integration, and when customer basically check for availability or like for the product, then it's basically shown to them that the delivery or like quick the on-demand or like last-mile delivery would be possible. And for the second question is so Uber Direct is based on distance, so it's a distance price, very linear. We basically have a base fee for the first 500 meters, and then each additional 500 meters are priced also with a little price. So to basically give you a reference, we have currently on our website the SSU process, which is self-sign-up process, and there we have the base fee of $7.90 for the first 500 meters, and each additional 500 meters is 50 cents. And this sounds maybe a lot at the beginning, but I mean it's also on-demand delivery, and you have your ways of somehow steering to get this cost back from the customer. So compared to an Uber Eats, we don't take, or like where we basically get the delivery fee. Here, the customer can charge the customer for the delivery, and can also like apply some minimum basket or like free delivery from 50 euros, tactics like this.
Okay. I don't see any remote questions, or my tablet here is not working. I don't know, but I'll take another question from the room here. Any questions? Oh, sorry. Any question here? Okay.
As a driver, can I sign up for multiple products at the same time? For example, can I do Uber Eats as well as Direct?
So I'm not sure about this. I only know that, for example, for the passenger transportation, there are also like legal requirements, right? You need to be, I mean, at least in Berlin, I mean, it's also like a very fragmented market. But in Berlin, you need to have a license for this. And with a courier, it's a bit more easy, where you just need basically a fleet partner with whom you can work, and then you can do deliveries.
Why I asked that is, if you have the situation when you're running in a complex situation where one guy could be running both products at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So this, I mean, I don't know. So I'm actually not so sure about this. Of a courier can do both, but I mean, in the end, we also like monitor the data on like on these trips. So when we basically dispatch a courier for a trip, and the courier constantly cancels, then obviously this will have an impact on on how we basically work with this courier.
We had another question here.
Yeah, just a bit of a different topic.
Yeah.
How does the speed and accuracy of the delivery actually play into sustainability data? Like, is there any relation, and do you care if it actually increases sustainability or?
Okay, so that's also like a very, very critical question. So I actually don't know have the right answer to this. I only know that we have definitely programs in place to make sure that our fleet is till 2024 completely emission-free, and I think till 2030 that we have like only electrical vehicles. But I have to say, our vehicle fleet is kind of like mixed. So we have 50% of bicycles, and then also like 50% for longer distances with cars.
All right. Good. I would take one last question.
So many questions.
Yeah, one last.
So since you're merging, let's say, Uber Eats and the Uber Direct, I just wanted to know whether you'll be exploring dark warehouses, for example, since it's based on the distance. So whether dark warehouses would be the future for the service, because right now when we looked at the survey, it said price is a huge factor. And when you compare yourself to traditional shipping, when it comes to these kind of products, maybe there could be some barrier to entry. So do you see the future for that?
So from the strategy I know, there's like no plans to have these warehouses. So I think we are like clearly focusing on this logistic part. We have our expertise in logistic and also like this excellence. So, but yeah, I definitely get that it would be like super interesting to have these warehouses in order to be even more efficient. But maybe this can be something with with a third party. Maybe.
All right, cool. Thanks for your questions. Would ask you to spare with us for 20 seconds, and please all speakers come up, and we'll have like a closing round.
Brauchst du den Klicker?
Nee, brauche ich nicht. All right, guys. All right, guys. So that was quite a ride. We started with like an event-based system, Dana, that you introduced to us, where you put AI on it to just improve, basically, and try to deal with the legacy from your more than 1,000 providers. That's quite a bit. We then moved on to Adrian, learned about how drivers are being navigated and how we can create like an Uber-alike experience. And then we came to Uber, which is actually, let's say, the baseline. However, you're only delivering 1 to 3 packs or food or other things. So the complexity, at least in the last very bit of the delivery, as we learned from you, Adrian, is probably a different one. But I think there is some common ground that we can tell. And let me start with the topic of service time. I think that's a quite interesting one. I think, Adrian, from your perspective, you explained it was pretty understandable. And to calculate the ETA, you need a driving time. That's dependent on traffic, etc. But there's providers out there where you can calculate it from maps, basically. And the service time is where it gets tricky. Dana, do you have any point in your product where you say, yeah, service time is something that we need to consider to get our product work and to create a really good user experience?
Yeah, I think there's just so many variables, especially if you even start before delivery, then that gets even more complex because you don't know which carrier is behind it and which service. But it all depends also on other stuff, like the destination postal code is super important. So we need to have that. The weight and the size really makes a big difference. We have a customer that transport popcorn machines. Believe me, the ETA is a really difficult one to predict because no driver really enjoys carrying them. So there's so many variables that go into this.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Patrick, from your perspective, service time, is this something? I mean, three deliveries max per ride is a different story than 120, 150, or even 200. So it adds up differently. But how at Uber Connect? What's your experience there? And I personally would be interested. Is there a difference in between delivering a pack and delivering a pizza in terms of service time?
So there's definitely some restrictions or like limitations on like what we can basically deliver. So I believe it's like 20 kilos or 23 kilos for couriers. I think this is also like a legal rule. And but in terms of the efficiency, I mean, obviously the more orders one courier is doing, the more efficient it gets. And I think it's just like about to find this sweet spot. What basically the demand or the need for the market in that very moment is.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks, guys. Let's come to a topic that I think also was present all across the presentations, which is avoiding wrong estimations. Right. So this is something that is pretty much the result of the machine learning or the AI systems that you provide. Just to sum up the tactics, I mean, we can, and we had this one example that is never wrong. If you say it arrives from 1 at night until 23 at night, so there, but you're not wrong. It will be 99% right, but also the UX is not quite good. So this kind of trade-off in between what you promise and how good the user experience is, how smart, how small the time windows is, and actually how the success rate that you can later provide. Maybe let's elaborate a little bit on Adrian. Where did you find your personal tactic in this game?
That's a tough one, I think. I think you need to find your sweet spot here. You don't want to be too wide, because then the relevance of this product is just not there anymore. But if you overpromise and you're wrong, then you have frustrated users. So starting with a wider window and narrowing it down towards the immediate of the delivery, I think is the tactics that we are quite successful with, I would say. But of course, it's very tough. I think open communication, if you're wrong, and we know we are wrong, to openly communicate that is, I think, our next step that we have to go into and learn a little bit on how that is perceived by the consignees. But yeah, it's a thin line and it's a tough one, definitely.
Hannah, Dana, how do you think about it? Any tactics from your side?
Yeah, I think to your point, right, there's two different wrongs in this whole game, which I only learned over time, actually, because I didn't think about the second one. There's obviously, it came too late, and that's really frustrating. But the interesting thing is, too early is also really wrong. It took me a while to figure this one out. So the question is exactly how you said, how narrow can you be? And honestly, it's also a bit of like, how much risk are you ready to take with your prediction, right? And there's an interesting finding that we also had is obviously predicting that something arrives today, if it's in a truck, when it's at the end of the shift, that's where it gets the most risky, because there's another thing I learned, which is called rollover, which means that it was in the truck, they wanted to deliver it today, but they actually didn't make it, right? Like shift work, and it's also highly regulated in Germany. So honestly, we, to a certain extent, we talk to our clients and say, how conservative do you want to be? So we can make the window quite wide and therefore be very accurate, because it's definitely going to come in between this time frame. Or we can make it more specific with that actually more impactful, but then the risk is a bit higher. And it's a trade-off that in our experience, every retailer that we work with has to decide for themselves.
Patrick, I want to bring up a topic that you also had, at least on as a side note of your presentation, which is the legal and the privacy aspect. You say you are not accurately displaying the position of the driver for privacy, maybe also for security reasons. I wonder, Dana and Adrian, how you guys deal with this topic. And I know it's also very much dependent on the market and on the country. But is this a topic for you, Dana, and how do you actually deal with it? And how do you ensure that only the right people see like information that may be private?
Yeah, it's a big topic because we all have to be GDPR compliant, and there's so many rules around this. We really have to differentiate market by market. And, you know, maybe to give you the opposite example, and that was also an interesting learning journey for us in Australia, right? We had a customer that said, I don't like your service because you can't tell me the name of the driver. And I was like, man, I'm German, that would be wrong on so many levels. But in Australia, you get the driver ID as part of the tracking details, publicly available to everyone. I mean, you don't know the person's name, but let's be honest, you sort of do, because the driver comes to your house, you can ask him, it's always the same driver, you can make this up, right? Like you actually know. So every market deals differently with it. And we have data fields that we never use in Europe, let's say it like that.
I know actually markets where the concernees have the phone number of the regular drivers in their phone book, and they just call them up. Do you have anything for me?
I just wanted to say that. Yeah. we have a client that the driver calls the concernee constantly, and they actually meet not at home, but they meet up somewhere else in a mall or something. But we cannot show the driver's position on the map. So they. I said, it really depends on the market, depends on the client. We usually are quite frank about the vehicle position. We assume that it will go fine, and it does. But some markets have different needs, and some customers have different needs.
Also, a tactic I think that is regularly used within parcel delivery companies is not display the vehicle position all over the journey, but rather have it before delivery. So maybe that, you know, these 3, 5, 10 stops before delivery. And I think that's also a tactic. And I mean, let's not forget, GDPR is one thing, but it's also about the people who do the job actually. So we have to not only make sure that the concernee is happy, the driver plays a big part in this role. And we have a high dependency also in terms of how accurate the data is. So we need the driver to be part of this journey, and not all the drivers would be amused if someone waiting for the new iPhone hunting their truck. So it's something that we have to take serious. Actually.
But usually we show the map on the vehicle on the map, but then if the concernee sees this, it's already outdated basically. And what we don't show is the route. So you see it in 1 second, but what happens in the next minute you don't know. So this hunting down the driver is something we haven't faced yet.
Highly unlikely.
Possibly with us.
Huh?
Possibly with us, being the driver. But no one does it. No one does it.
Now we know.
All right, guys. Anything else that you guys observed from each other's presentations and you want to point out?
I really like this. You call it EDD, right? We call it pre-ETA. I guess everybody has different names. You also mentioned that. That's something we're looking into now because we also exactly had the same thinking. Like this raises the conversion rate for our retailers in the end.
Yeah.
How do you do this? What is your technique in understanding this EDD? And do you go even further in not only EDD, which probably stands for estimated day of delivery?
Yeah.
But do you also have an estimated day of delivery and plus ETA?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one because in our case, I mean, you're sort of the much more granular solution on the out for delivery stage, as we would describe it, right? Where we often start much earlier. And for out for delivery, you better know what the route is because otherwise it's really hard to predict the time. But there are exceptions. I mean, there's customers like the Grabs, the Ubers, Lala Moves that we see that have what we call synchronous events, so you can actually track it. And then we basically have a principle to say we switch to the most granular information possible. So we might start with our prediction because there's no better prediction unless the merchants say, oh, it's between 5 to 10 days. No one wants that. So we got to make that better. Then we have the prediction, but latest when it hits out for delivery, and I think there's a lot of room also for partnerships. Latest then when it's a time window, the carrier knows best, because then we are done with it will be delivered today, unless rollover, that's another thing. But then we like to sometimes switch back to the carriers because they know what they're doing, they know the route that they're taking, and therefore we can give an accurate time window. So I think there's also just a lot of room for everyone to admit which part of the prediction they're good in and then combine those. I think that will make the true magic, to really grab the most precise one at any point in time.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, and thanks everyone for attending today. Thanks especially and to you as speakers. I think we learned a lot from ETD to ETA to LTD. That was also new to me. So it's quite a journey. And I think, Dani, you're absolutely right. It will be a very exciting journey. I think tracking and real-time tracking established as standards, also pushed by markets that are not directly parcel delivery, by Uber, by food delivery, etc. They create user expectations. We have to fulfill it, and it will be a quite exciting journey to see this more granular, less granular overall solutions and data merged together in the future. So a big chunk of work ahead of us that I'm really looking forward to. Thanks for coming here. Please stay with us for a while. Talk to us, talk to the speakers. This is a networking event. This is a community. I'm happy to see you all. And next meetup, please sign up for our newsletter and LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn so you get notified early enough. We'll do everything to put together such an exciting program as we had it today. Thanks a lot for having us. Thanks for coming. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Last Mile Delivery Meetup. We hope you enjoyed the exclusive insights and discussions shared during this podcast. If you are interested in finding out more about upcoming events, technological updates, and industry news, subscribe to the Bettermile newsletter. The link is in our bio. Thanks for listening.